we choose to go to the moon because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept and one we intend to win.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Magnificent ride. I'd like to trace through a little bit for you. In fact, on this flight, we've carried along pieces of bread. Along with the bread, we have a ham spread.
Retro.
Go.
Fido.
Go.
Guide. Go. Control. Go. Telcom.
Go.
GNC.
Go.
Ecom.
Go.
Surgeon.
Go.
Capcom, we're go for landing.
Eagle Houston, you're a go for landing, over. Roger, understand. Go for landing. 3,000 feet. 1201. Roger, 1201 alarm.
1201 alarm.
Set time, we're go, flight. We're
Okay,
go.
we're go.
Green time, we're go. 40 feet down, 2.5. Picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Big shadow. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Now I want to back up and partially close the hatch. Making sure not to lock it on my way out. That's our home for the next couple hours. We want to take good care of it. Beautiful view. Magnificent desolation.
Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one.
Tranquility Base, Houston. You're cleared for takeoff. Roger, understand. We're number one on the runway. We've come to the conclusion that this has been far more than 3 men on a voyage to the moon. More still than the efforts of a government and industry team. More even than the efforts of one nation. We feel that this stands as a symbol of the insatiable curiosity of all mankind to explore the unknown.
So, yesterday was incredible. I want to thank you all for having us here because, usually we talk to space cadets, which is great, but all of you are the people that really matter because when we're just preaching to the choir, I don't think we're making any progress. And we've got some of the greatest thinkers on the planet here today, so it's really an honor for us to be here. I think yesterday we learned that we're living in really interesting times. And while politically that may be a curse, for people like us in the space business, it's a blessing. There's such incredible opportunity right now, and I think, I hope by the time we're done with this, you'll see that when we're done with this whole panel, I think you'll understand just how incredible the opportunities are in front of us in space. So, Dad,
Spoken like a political science guy.
Yeah. So listen, for 30 years at least, we've been having these conversations, and you have been consumed for your entire life with the prospect of putting people on other planets. It started out with the moon, but for the last 30 years, you have been dedicated to the proposition of getting people on Mars and getting people on Mars permanently. And that's an incredible thing. And, one of the few other people in the world that has done it for that long is Bob over here. So we're really blessed that two of, frankly, the original veteran Martians are here in front of us. But so let's talk about Mars. Let's start with Mars at least. When do you think it's conceivable that we can have people there and have a permanent habitation grow into a civilization? When does it all start?
Well, Bob and I got involved in something that was called the Mars Underground. And I think we need to bring it above the ground and have it.
We are there now.
We're there now.
Right? I mean, that's one of the things that's happening today is we're really looking at governments, and we're going to touch on it later. In particular, right here in Abu Dhabi, the government is talking about a civilization on Mars in 2117. But I want to know from you.
Yeah, okay.
When are we going to get there?
Well, I wasn't the first person to kind of think about going to Mars. I heard several years ago at the 100th anniversary of MIT, people reminiscing about when President Kennedy, after the Bay of Pigs wasn't a great success, went into NASA and said, we've got to do something. I think we should go to Mars. Mars. Well, I don't know whether it was a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, but anyway, someone said, well, that, Mr. President, is probably a little bit beyond us, but we'll kind of look into it and give you an answer on Monday. That was the busiest weekend that NASA has ever had. About 15 years, maybe we could get to the moon. Well, he was a little impatient, and like anyone, it wanted to happen during his second term. I'm thinking of what can happen in President Trump's second term now. But that's a little egotistical, so somebody came up with the idea, well, why not within a decade? I wasn't sure what decade meant, but anyway, we figured it out, and so now I use the term at an appropriate time, and I think an appropriate time is reminiscing about a couple guys prancing around on the moon 50 years ago, and that'll be in a little over a couple of years, and that's a good time for somebody to make a commitment. It gives some of us time to build up to that and look over the various alternatives. And I would say that that's a time when I believe this nation should commit itself within 2 decades to America leading international crews to occupy Mars. Now, I use the term occupy, and 2 decades is going to be mid-part of 2039, and just round it off to 2040. Because I believe the talking about NASA objective of within the 30s, I'm sure, we need to do some things leading up to that. I don't think we're too well situated right now.
So I want to go in the other direction. I want to know, so if we're going to be there in 39,
Yeah,
are we going to have a permanent habitation starting in 39?
exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Now, right now, we have to pay another space agency or another country to even get our human beings into orbit after we invested a good bit in the International Space Station, the ISS. And we put it in a high inclination orbit because that would satisfy one of the...
So, Dad, we're going to get back to Leo in a minute.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Mars for a minute right now. So, one of the things that you've done that Bob briefly alluded to was the concept of cycling spacecraft. And I'm just going to kind of give people a general idea. The basic idea is, when you put a satellite in orbit around the Earth, once you accelerate it, you don't have to do anything. It just keeps going around the Earth, right? Well, so what my dad's done is created a system for basically doing that between Earth and Mars. And it's not as simple as it sounds. The trajectories are pretty complex. I'm going to give you a chance.
Even highfalutin universities don't.
But heck, I as a political scientist can
catch it right away.
So, so the basic idea is you're orbiting between Earth and Mars. And what this means is, once you get the system up and running, you can send people to Mars for about an order of magnitude less than what it would cost you, if you will, to send people to Mars if you put everything that you need on a rocket and sent it up there and brought it all back. It's an incredible revolution. I want you to tell us a little bit about how you got there. I mean, because this goes back, you've been working on the cycling trajectories for well over 30 years now. Right.
Well over, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I did ask somebody in the trajectory mission control what kind of an orbit would we be in when the rocket burned out. And they informed me we would be in a free return trajectory. That means if the third stage is accurate enough, you're going to coast to Mars. And for you folks, we go this way in orbit, counterclockwise. But when we leave Earth, we go out here and we end up going this way around the moon. If you put yourself into orbit, but if you don't, you're on a free return coming back again. Well, this intrigued me. We never had to use that at all. But if things went wrong, we're in a 10-day orbit of the Earth. Now, that's pretty secure. And that's why we felt we might have to take a 60% chance of being successful in landing on this first attempt. But there are a lot of times when you can get back home if you fix the circuit breakers, but that's another story.
We're not going into the circuit breakers today. So you started out with Earth-Moon
all
cycling.
This free return business and things, we believed that they'd put this together and tested it, and we had a 95% chance of coming back safely. And I was in combat, and a lot of people didn't have 95%. I lucked out a couple of times with some bad mistakes. Not bad, but stupid. A couple of big pilots were in parachutes when last seen. They got back safely, I assume. Free return trajectory and close to saving, being picked up like Apollo 13 if something went wrong. This is important to keep in mind because unfortunately it doesn't appear that we have that in typical Mars departures that I've been able to read. We're at Earth and we're going to go to Mars, so somewhere in here we're going to accelerate and make a thrusting until we reach a particular velocity that'll get us to Mars. Now, en route to that velocity, you go through escape velocity of the Earth. Now, to get to Mars, it's a bit more than that. So we'll call that 100%. Escape velocity is about 80%. There isn't really a good free return trajectory to leave Earth and swing by and come back.
That one that you just come back as part of your natural orbit, right?
Yeah. Use the gravity of the other, not to do something like cycling, but to use it to get back home, because you gotta have the engine burning more than escape. I mean, if the engine quits after escape velocity, you're not coming back to Earth. And if it doesn't get to 100%, you're not getting to Mars. You're in a solar orbit. This is kind of bad news, because there really isn't much of an escape. Now, originally, years ago, I thought, now people are going to make fun of me because of a wild idea of free return and, going to the moon and back. If you come back, you're going to swing around the Earth if you did it right. And if you swing around the Earth, you can go back out again. Gee, that's pretty good. But the moon isn't be there because it moves around. Now, I'm doing it for my benefit. Things move this way for you. And I don't want to get into teaching directions of... See, everybody is used to time running from your right to left. But if you want to look at that's not the way the planets move. They really kind of move this way and another one this way. And sort of got used to that, playing around with the Gemini rendezvous as to what a trajectory of intercept might look like.
But so how did you get to the Mars cycle?
So if you can do something that's a moon cycler, I thought it was pretty neat. Now, I knew that John Houbolt, an engineer, is the one who pioneered Lunar Orbit Rendezvous, LOR. And that was in opposition to Wernher von Braun's way of getting there. Big rocket and a big spacecraft. And even after Apollo, he and the science advisor both felt that we were doing it the wrong way. Now, that was LOR. And John Houbolt, sort of my role model. But we're going to do something different. It's going to be LRR and MRR. That's Lunar Reusable Rendezvous and Mars Reusable Rendezvous. But we've got to get there first, and that is to do a cycling orbit between Earth and Mars. Now, 1985, after being disappointed by NASA because they didn't think my lunar cycling orbit was worth that much, and I knew that in order to put somebody on the surface, you use LOR. But this was different. This was an adventure travel because you could intercept a cycler and swing by the backside, or go out even further away than people have been before. If you do that in 10 days twice, 10, and this one takes 7, that's a month. And the moon will be back where you want it to be.
Okay.
But they didn't like that. And so the administrator, when we went to the moon, Dr. Tom Paine, said, Buzz, don't get discouraged. Use your gravity assist at the Earth and that moon, and use that between Earth and Mars. I thought that's pretty daunting, but it turns out that, see, I'm going to go the way you go. If in the Gemini program we've got a target going this way around the Earth, and we want to catch up with it by going this way, what's the difference between the Sun and Mars and the Earth? A lot of the things play out to be about the same. So I came up with a way you could do that in one 26-month period. Now, that's the time when Earth catches up with Mars, and the next time it catches up, Earth makes 2 orbits and Mars makes 1, and you catch up again. And those are the times when you can go from Earth to Mars or Mars to Earth.
Okay.
So I did this in one period, and it was a cycling orbit, unusual, but some of the people at JPL and later at Purdue analyzed this pretty closely and put a paper out. I put my name on it out of courtesy. The problem was that you could get from Earth to Mars in 5 months. But then you had to get back in a total of 26. So that meant you had 21 months to come back, and you had to go out a lot further and a lot faster. And for that reason, you can do things in orbital stuff by reversing them. So you could also do 21 months Earth to Mars and 5 months back. But now you need a lot of fuel to intercept this. So there were things I didn't like. And there are other reasons why I think when we go, we don't want to just go and visit and then come back. But as I used the words before, international cruise to occupy. That means somebody is at Mars all the time.
Okay, so we're
Purdue
actually
came up with another version of this, and it sounded brilliant, really. Then I thought, well, gee, if you could only do one in one synodic period, why is it so brilliant to look at 2 synodic periods in every other one? That's where the idea came from, and Purdue came up with a Earth, Mars. About a year and a half between here. Now the next one comes along and does a Earth, Mars. Now, so you put 2 of them together, and you can go outbound every time you want.
okay.
But if you invert one of them, we got Earth, Mars, and you got a Mars, Earth. What do you do between here and here? Well, there is something to do. So if you can end up Earth, Mars, Earth, Mars, and have 2 of them every time, you got inbound and outbound. That is the Buzz Aldrin cycler.
Okay. So I knew I was at some risk bringing up cyclers, but it's an important piece of what you're doing that's absolutely unique.
All right. Do we have a question here from the audience? Somebody wants to ask a question to Buzz Aldrin.
Reusability.
All right. Do we have a question? Because if not, I'm going to throw one in, because I got more.
He's got a bunch.
All right.
So,
one question.
Quick
answer.
All right. So, yeah,
How
quick
do we
answer,
get
Dad.
started?
All right. So, just about 2 weeks ago, the Space Agency of the United Emirates announced that they were going to embark on a project to establish a settlement, a city, in 2117. What we've learned from you today is that's absolutely possible. And so what I want you to talk about a little bit is what's the role of internationals, and in particular, quickly now.
Yeah.
What's the role for emerging spacefaring nations in this? Because there is a place for emerging spacefaring nations in habitation of Mars.
Every journey requires the first step. And the first step is not to go to the International Space Station. It's not that good in orbit. It's to go to another location and put together Earth commercial cyclers that can then, if we have someone internationally build another one, we can take one and we can go to the moon and back a few times, intercept it, demonstrate we know how, and get one to be a lunar cycler. Then we can begin to assemble things on the ground and refuel. Now, to the degree that we do that, we make it easier for ESA, Russia, Japan, and China to join us. We have partners because we have done something, and we're going to help all of these along. And as they begin to do what they're supposed to do, which is to build and land things, and we'll put them together, why then we can devote some attention to the new kids on the block. India, South Korea, and UAE, and other nations. We can begin to meld them into this world exploration coalition of nations. Now, we need to get that organization sort of put together early so it becomes attractive to China. We need to have some things that are attractive to them because we don't want to compete. It is unproductive. We compete at the design level, pick the best design, and then cooperate using the best design in operations.
So thank you. Give it up for Buzz
Saving
Aldrin.
money.